Welcome, guys, to Zero Issue Comics. I'm your host, Caden.
And I'm Briona.
So, I figured we'd do something a little bit different going forward. I think we're going to start dabbling with weekly comic book reviews. So, this is going to be our inaugural episode of our new show, The Zero Pull, the weekly comic show. So, this was going to have a pretty simple format. Me and Briona are just going to take turns reviewing the books that we read each week. If we both read it, we'll both talk about it. But I'll get us kicked off. So, this week, I read Green Lantern Corps issue 14 by Morgan Hampton and penciled by Fernando Passarin. I'm kind of mixed on this book, if I'm being perfectly honest. I enjoyed it well enough. It's just Green Lantern doing what Green Lantern does.
It looks
I just
so
don't
fun,
know.
just from the cover. The cover alone looks fun.
Yes. So the plot of this book, or at least the A plot of this book, is that in the wake of DCKO, Guy Gardner, everybody's favorite douchebag Green Lantern, is the only one that can see the reincarnated emotional entities that are now, emotional entity babies.
They're so fun.
I knew Briona would dig these, so I saved this image just for her because they are ridiculously ugly, and I knew she would connect with that.
They're so ugly. I really kind of hate them, especially the yellow one, but it's so fun.
But, they look like exactly what you would imagine, chibi-ified, Beanie Baby, marketable versions of the emotional spectrum, entities would be. However, as a result of Guy Gardner being the only one that can see them, it's clearly the various lanterns that don't know him as well are now they're not quite worshiping him, but they're seeing him as a religious figure on Oa. Because currently in the current continuity, all the lanterns, every color, are occupying Oa at the same time for the first time. So, I think that's actually an interesting premise. I think Guy, complaining about how he became important at work and, taking advantage of these mooks is pretty funny. However, the thing that was kind of holding me back a little bit with this book was actually Passarin's art. It looked a little rushed. Like, some of his faces just looked wonky. Specifically, Guy's was very pinched, and I just wasn't the biggest fan. I really liked the designs of the emotional entity babies, and I liked all the alien designs and whatnot. And then certain characters like Jessica Cruz and Joe Moline, the other Green Lantern, they all looked really well, composited, but Guy just looked wonky. And then there was another Green Lantern who was like a cat man. He looked, like he was like a cat. He was like a lion. He can go from house cat mode to lion mode, and he looked a little wonky as well. So it was, I don't know if Passarin was just rushed or what, but the art really wasn't doing it for me. But overall, the book was fine. It's just kind of what I expect Green Lantern to be at this point. I don't know if I'll pick up the next issue. If it's a light week, I might. If not, we'll see. This might be the first and only outing of Green Lantern Corps on this show.
We'll have to see.
But Briona, what did you read?
Yeah, I read Supergirl, written and drawn by Sophie Campbell this week, and then the color was by Tamara Bonvillain. In this story, Supergirl is very distraught over her missing cousin. She spends the whole first page being like, I want to go out and look for Clark, but I have important duties here. So
Which is funny, because Clark at the end of KO was like, I will be back. He Arnolded it up, and he's just like,
yeah,
don't worry, guys, I'll be back. And now everybody's like, oh no, where's Clark?
Yeah, that is not acknowledged. I think everybody's just like, we need him back. We don't trust him to come home.
I feel like if you can't trust Superman to come home, especially when he's God tier or King Omega or whatever the hell it is. Who can you trust Lois Lane to come home?
Anyone?
Anybody? It's for Superman, it's a commute home, down the interstate. He's just gonna be a minute, but I don't know. I don't get it. But I guess, sorry. How was this book overall, though?
You're good. It was fine. The art was really good. That's pretty characteristic of Sophie Campbell. I like her art, and Bonvillain's colors were really great. I think they complemented each other really well. Mm-hmm. Supergirl spends most of this issue in the city of Kandor, in a bottle.
The bottle city of Kandor.
Yes, yeah.
Within the Fortress of Solitude.
Right. Yeah, it's very layered. Um,
Mm-hmm.
while Connor and uh, freaking
Lena,
what's her name?
it's Connor and what? It's Lex's daughter, right?
Yes, Lex's daughter. I
Lena
don't know why
Luthor?
I
Is it
can't.
Lena?
Yes, Lena, I think. Yeah. Um, they're out there patrolling, like monitoring Kara's activity to make sure she's doing okay. Kara gets in a really big fight with an angsty teen who's upset with the government of Kandor and is
Yeah, in
overthrowing the
Candor.
government of Kandor. I mostly was excited to read this book because Boy Thunder was on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And
He
Boy
doesn't
Thunder
appear?
is not really. He appears under the cliff that Kara is thrown off of at the end of the issue, and he's all in shadow. And that's what you get. So the whole issue was essentially just Kara talking to an angsty teen and getting the crap beaten out of her. So
How was the writing on it? Because, Campbell's writing is, for me at least, I really liked it when she was drawing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When she started
yeah.
writing it, I thought there was a slow dip over time. So I'm a much bigger fan of her artwork than I am of her plotting.
That's how I feel with this book in particular, with just this one issue. She was the pacing was a little strange and the dialogue felt a little stiff. But I'll pick it up and I'll give it at least a few issues because I think it's interesting and I want David to show up at some point. So that'll be good.
And I'm sure, like Young Justice fans everywhere are mourning the fact that Connor Kent has been reduced to a guy in a chair.
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure they're thrilled that's a real good use of him. But you know what? At least he's appearing in a book.
Yeah. Be grateful.
Be grateful. So I guess, do you have anything else to say about Supergirl, or are we good to move on to the next book?
Yeah, pretty straightforward on this one.
Okay, so the next book that I read was Archie X, The Army of Darkness. I'll be honest, so this book is ridiculous. As you would expect, I feel like every...
I would expect that.
I feel like Archie, I love the people over at Archie because they just know how to pick the most insane crossovers for the Riverdale gang to, get up to. We have Archie versus Punisher, Archie versus Predator, and now we have Army of Darkness. This was written by Eric Burnham and drawn by Bill Galvan. So I really didn't connect with the first issue of this. It was a lot of setup, but it was weirdly split as far as like the timeline was concerned. So, we start off in Reggie Mantle's newly acquired cabin in the woods that his parents has given him. And it's, it's bougie and nice, but of course Archie stumbles into a creepy basement where, of course, Archie of all people has to accidentally read from the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, and Deadites start appearing and killing, the partygoers at Reggie's, at his like lake party, right? So the first issue was fine. It was a lot of setup, the plot is pretty straightforward. The way we set up the crossover is an S-Mart, Shop Smart, S-Mart, opened up at Riverdale. And of course, Ash is working there, and Betty and Veronica, they are begging Archie to essentially buy them Labubus. Or at least the Archie equivalent to them. They're like little stuffed dogs, but they treat them like Labubus in the story. Sure. They're like a fashion accessory. That's what Labubus are, right? I don't quite understand. Yes. Are they out of vogue yet? I, as a concept, I find them fascinating. I don't quite understand them.
They're just a fun collectible that you can wear as a fashion piece.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's exactly it. That's what, these dogs have creepy eyes, especially once they get possessed by deadites. But, Archie needs money to afford these stupid Labubu dogs. And as a result, he gets a job at S-Mart. And of course, his trainer is Ash. And then in this issue, the first issue has a little bit of a flashback to that. In this issue, we get a setup where Ash is the one who actually drove Archie up to the party, out to this cabin. And he takes him out in the classic. So we get the classic, Sam Raimi car in there. But this issue was a lot better than the first. I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit more Evil Dead than it is Army of Darkness. But I think that's only because, Army of Darkness is predicated on it being set in the past. And I don't see them going to medieval England, which is actually just, a composite castle in the deserts of California. So
Yes.
it, I don't expect that anytime soon. But this book was fun. I really enjoyed it. Much better than the first book. So I think my favorite scene was when Dilton is getting, Dilton Doily, the resident nerd of Riverdale, is getting chased by a deadite, and he's running through all of like the zombie, cliches, and he's like, "Oh, are you gonna eat my brain? Or are you gonna do this? All this stuff." And then the deadite pounces on him, and is like, "No, I'm gonna swallow your soul." I just read it in the Sam Raimi stupid voice where it's like, "Swallow your soul, swallow your soul." I just really loved it. And then the deadite gets its head blown off, the blood just splatters all over Dilton. It was great. It was just so
Classic.
It's classic in the sense that it's drawn in the Archie's art style, but it doesn't pull any of the Sam Raimi punches. It was just a great read. I really enjoyed this issue.
I got to like the second one better.
Yeah, I was really worried after the first one. I thought I was going to drop it, but no, it kept me going.
This week, I also read, if that's all, for Army of Darkness.
Yes, that's
I also read Jessica Jones' Alias, which was a great book. It was written by Sam Humphries, and the art was by Geraldo Borges. The color was by Arthur Helsey, and I really, really enjoyed this book. It was pretty much panel to panel everything I wanted in a Jessica Jones book. This is obviously the first issue of a new story. And,
a Red Band story.
Yes, a Red Band, my very first Red Band book. I'm so excited. But in this story, Jessica Jones she has her PI license revoked by the NYPD because Luke Cage is currently the mayor of New York, and he is it's not good for publicity for her to be gallivanting around the city doing private investigation work. And so that's causing some tension in their relationship, specifically when she returns back to the Alias office to pick up a toy that her child has left there, and she discovers inadvertently that her neighbors have been gruesomely murdered and mutilated. And as she is discovering this, a photojournalist has followed her and snapped a picture of her standing in front of the corpses of these people, implying that she is investigating when she should not be, seeing as she no longer has a license to do so. And so that's putting her and Luke both in some hot water. Inevitably, Jessica Jones gets tied up with the wife of the Kingpin, Typhoid Mary, and decides that she will investigate the story, and it all goes downhill from there. So this book was really good. I liked every single page turn. It's the utilization of like emotion and color and change of scene was really, really well done. And I'll definitely keep on reading this.
It was Luke and Jessica's relationship. How was it depicted in this?
It was clearly based on real relationships. I liked how authentic it seemed in the sense that it's clear that they both care for each other a lot and that they mean a lot to each other, but that right now they're both in a situation that they don't really want to be. It's not going the way either of them imagined, and there's a conflict of interest keeping them from being able to best support one another in the way they know how.
Yeah, so Jessica's frustrated that Luke is mayor, and Luke is frustrated that Jessica is wrapped up in this investigation.
Yes, and both because they both understand why, but they can't find a way to resolve both of those problems.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems interesting. I want to read this book. I just didn't have time to check it out. Maybe I'll check it out later today. But other than that, I guess I read Die Reloaded issue 5. I don't want to talk about it too much because I feel like this book is kind of hard to talk about without spoiling it. All I'm going to say is that if you are a fan of the original Die by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hahn, why aren't you reading this book? Just read this book. It's more of the same thing. It's good. It's enjoyable. This is the penultimate issue. The final issue, I think, comes out in a week, or at least of this volume. And then it'll be out as a trade in a few months, I assume. So I'd highly recommend this book. And if you haven't read Die, I would say the easiest pitch for it is Die is essentially just dark Jumanji meets D&D with like a little bit of Stephen King flair. I really dig it. yeah, if you're a D&D fan or you just like fantasy, I've checked this book out. It's pretty good. Other than that, I guess my real review is going to be Venom issue 255. So this is part of the ongoing Spider-Man event called Death Spiral right now. Essentially, Spider-Man and Venom, who is now Mary Jane Watson, are hunting down a new serial killer in New York. I really don't like this event so far. I'm really struggling to read Spider-Man. I think this event might be my exit out of it, but this issue, which is, I think it's like part 3 of 9, this is by far the strongest issue so far. That's because it's written by Al Ewing, who's, I feel like, the strongest writer at Marvel right now besides Chip Zdarsky. You know, it seems like Chip, Al Ewing, and Jed MacKay are like the 3 superstars at Marvel right now. I'm not the biggest Jed MacKay fan, or at least I'm not reading Moon Knight, and I thought his Avengers was really boring. So for me, it's really Chip Zdarsky and Al Ewing are the 2 at Marvel that are attracting me as far as, you know, writers are concerned. But the pencils are done by, let me get his name correct, it's Carlos Gomez. And this, let me tell you, Gomez is just born to be a Spider-Man artist. The entire time I've been popping into Venom off and on since it started, and the entire time I'm just like, oh man, I just want Gomez to draw Spider-Man because he's got the style down, and I wasn't disappointed in this book. And then on top of it, you know, this book is dealing with the fallout of Peter discovering that MJ is now Venom, because it was essentially an open secret to everybody except Peter.
That's embarrassing.
It seemed like everybody in the Marvel Universe knew that Mary Jane was Venom except for Peter Parker. And nice. I was expecting him to react like a big man baby like he did in previous issues, because that seems to be the MO for Peter Parker right now, but he handles it in a very mature way, and I really enjoyed how Ewing characterized Peter Parker. And even though I enjoy parts of the Joe Kelly run, it did make me wish, I'm like, man, I wish Al Ewing was on Spider-Man right now. So it was worth the read. It definitely, if this book was bad, I was going to quit the series outright. I was just going to be like, no more Death Spiral for Caden. But it bought itself another issue. So Venom 255, pretty okay for the most part.
There we go. Stay tuned to see if it stays that way.
You checked out a new book this week. It was Storm, correct?
Yes, I also did read Storm. I wasn't going to read this book just because I felt like I was reading too much, but then I was like, you know what? I have to. Storm is obviously one of my favorite X-Men, and it's so early on. Obviously, this is only issue 2, so I'm really happy that I picked this book up and that I read issue 1 as well, because it has been great so far. In this issue in particular, I guess I should say who it's by. Storm is by Morewa Iodeli, and the art is by Federica Manson, with color by Yava Taratelli, I think.
And you said it's great so far?
So good, yes. I've been super happy with it. In this issue in particular, Storm teams up with Scarlet Witch, and I'm also reading Sorcerer Supreme, so that was a fun little crossover. I like both Scarlet and Storm's characterization and their interaction as 2 people who are there's a mystic arts plot happening right now in the Storm issue. And so having them both there was really, really valuable and cool. There's this great quote that Wanda says to Storm when she's describing the world that Storm has stepped into. And she says that in the world of mysticism, victory belongs to the biggest scoundrel. And I really liked that description of magic and the way that it works in the Marvel Universe. And
it's just, you have to be a big old son of a bitch to use it.
Yeah, it was a great description, and she goes on to say that it's not about how strong you are, and obviously Storm, her big thing is that she's really strong.
Yeah, she's the bestest mutant ever.
Yep, the bestest. And so this,
which in all fairness, once you're controlling weather, like that, once you're controlling an elemental force, touche.
Yes. Right. So Wanda's whole point was that Storm is going to have to rely on something else other than her sheer power and strength to be able to confront these problems in this book.
It's like me when I'm playing Pokemon. When I
have a strategy.
When I'm just like, I'm just going to go in and brute force every gym. It doesn't matter if that mill tank is strong. If I'm level 50, nothing's stopping it.
That, yeah, it is like that. But yeah, one of the things that I feel like Ayodele does a really good job of is playing into Storm's emotional character. Like, she is very passionate, very full of very strong emotions, and both the art and the writing does a really good job portraying that. And I will 100% be reading more of this. The plot is like secondary to me. It's more about the characterization and the world that's going on. So
okay, that's great. So I guess I'm going to talk about this really quick. Action Comics 1096. This is kind of a hard book for me to review because it's really a slice of life young Superman book. You know, it's about Superboy. And the cover kind of got me a little bit. I was expecting it. You know, this arc is titled The Search for Superman. I thought we were going to see Superman interact with his young self, Superboy, and, you know, have some sweet moment where they talk to each other. Because this was being written by Mark Waid, and Mark Waid did the exact same thing back when he was writing Flash, where he had like an adult Wally West, who's now the Flash, talk to a teenage or a little boy version of Wally at like a family barbecue or whatever. And Mark Waid has talked about like how when he wrote that issue, it was essentially just him being like, okay, what would I tell to my younger self to make him know that everything's going to be okay? And I was really excited to see that with Superman. This cover is a lie. That does not happen. I expect it to happen at some point. The bulk of it is just set up for the last few pages. You know, young Clark is experiencing time out of sequence. So, you know, suddenly he'll hear like a balloon pop, and then the balloon will actually pop, or somebody will have a bruise appear on their arm, and then they'll trip and actually get it. And in Clark's case, when you have quick wardrobe changes, he'll suddenly be in his civilian gear, and then the next thing he knows, he's in his Superboy costume. So he's just doing everything that he can to, you know, figure out what's going on with time. It turns out that it's at least potentially a result of Booster Gold traveling back in time with his own little small team of heroes, as Booster Gold is also searching for Superman.
There we go.
which is, at least it was set up at the end of
That's
KO's.
where Kara wanted to be, searching with Booster Gold.
You and I talked about this off mic, but I really wish like the DC universe had the same relationship with Superman when he says, I'm going to be gone for a bit, that the Dragon Ball characters had with Goku. Because when Goku just says, you know what, I don't want to come home, I'm off training, or I'm better off dead, or something like that, like everybody's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we'll just leave him alone. We have the Dragon Balls. If we really need him, he'll show up.
Yeah, he'll show up. Like, you know, granted, most Dragon Balls just sitting around waiting for Goku to show up, but I just think it's funny that when Superman is like, bye, son. Everybody freaks out. Where in Dragon Ball, Goku can do it like every other day, and it's fine.
They can't let Superman have a bad dad moment. That wouldn't be good.
I mean, even though I would say arguably Superman is a bad dad, because they introduced those two twins.
Where are his two children?
Yeah, they introduced twins that he adopted, and I don't think they're in any of the books right now.
No.
So, you know, like, I feel like that's a lesson to be learned about superhero comics in general, is don't introduce a character unless everybody else is interested in developing him. Like, especially something as, like, central as, like, two children's. Like, if everybody else doesn't want to develop those characters, don't introduce them. But overall, Action Comics, it's side note, sorry. Back to my review of Action Comics. I guess I should say the art. It's Mark Waid, obviously, and Skylar Partridge does the art. She's fantastic artist. I really like this book. My only complaint is Mark Waid really likes 3-panel pages where nothing really happens. And this book did feel like a setup issue. I'm fine with it. I would still recommend Action Comics. It's one of those books where if you know, you know. So can't recommend it enough.
Great. Well, that sounds like a fun read. I'm always this close to reading it.
It's worth it. I feel like you're always peeking over my shoulder when I'm reading it. You're like, ooh.
I know. I'm like reading it next to you. I'm like, that looks good. That looks so pleasant.
Do you want to talk about Doctor Strange next, Briona?
I do want to talk about Doctor Strange. Yes. So Doctor Strange by Derek Landy and art by Ivan Fiorelli. The color was by Dono Sanchez Alamara, and I had not been reading this book up until this point. I just kind of picked it up and then backtracked out the other issues and read from the beginning, and I'm super glad I did. I haven't read any Doctor Strange titles before, so the extent of what I know about Doctor Strange is him appearing in a title that isn't his and being like, "You guys are doing everything wrong with magic. Here's what I know, everything," and then he imparts his wisdom and then leaves. So this has been a lot of fun because right now in this plot, he is stuck in Asgard. He's previously been named Sorcerer Supreme of Asgard. And
which is a made-up title, correct? That like
yes,
Thor just gave
made it
to
up
him.
because he straight up was like, "Yeah, Doctor Strange needs enough power to go back to Midgard, so I'm gonna make up this title for you," which is really funny. But yeah, so now he's stuck with Asgard and the 9 realms, and Thor is
It's
missing,
the 10
dead.
realms now. They introduced heaven like 10 years ago.
But Midgard is cut off.
Midgard
now,
is cut off.
so it's
see,
9
look at
realms
me.
again.
I did the ultimate comic book fan faux pas where I don't know enough about current continuity, where I'm the one that's actually in the wrong.
There you go. But yes, lots of this book actually takes place in heaven. He's teamed up with the angels of heaven and the light elves and momentarily the dark elves as well to track down a big bad that's eons and eons of old. And my favorite thing about this book is it's just a lot of family drama. There are a lot of characters, a lot of interplay, but really for the most part, it's just like, oh, this son is estranged from his mother and they hate each other, but they actually love each other. But it is actually just so much fun.
I mean, I feel like that's a Thor book at that point.
Yeah.
Like just like, well, my brother's an SOB, but I love him anyway.
I love him. Yeah. It's definitely focuses on these characters. You don't get a whole lot of time to get to know them, but I feel like that Landy does a really good job making you care about them anyway. Everybody feels like they have depth, even though a lot of characters are introduced pretty quickly in the first 4 issues. And I also really like that Doctor Strange is totally out of his depth. So I'd like to imagine that even though he would never tell anybody this, he's like, I miss being on Earth where I know everything and I don't know what's going on here, but he's handling it like a champ, playing politician and diplomat, and it's really, really fun.
Awesome. So let's get the last Marvel book out of the way. I read Imperial Guardians by Dan Abnett and Marcela Ferreira. I really like this book. The only frustrating thing is it's been canceled out of the gate. The art's good, the story's good. The team is interesting, even though I didn't expect to like this team as it was put together.
That's crazy that you didn't expect to like this team. This team looks like nothing but fire to me.
I mean, one of them literally is
on fire. Cosmic Ghost Rider.
I'm just sick of. Well, I'm not sick. I just find Amadeus Cho like way less interesting now that he's a Hulk. But the thing is, he's interesting in this book, and I really enjoyed it. It was a good use of Carol Danvers, good use of Gamora, a good use of Darkhawk, a forgettable 90s character created by...
first time ever. Good use of Nighthawk.
Yeah, Tom DeFalco would be proud that somebody finally is using Nighthawk to his full position. Not Nighthawk, Darkhawk. See, Nighthawk is another Marvel character.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I've literally never heard of this guy before, so...
I mean, that's how forgettable Darkhawk is that we can mess up his name, but he's great use of him here. They just play around with the fact that, you know, Darkhawk has never worked, and he knows that. Like, he knows that he's a crappy superhero. So this book was a lot of fun. It dealt with, you know, essentially the Guardians of the Galaxy now. This is a Guardians book, if you can't tell by the title. But they're essentially a Black Ops organization for the Galactic Union. You know, Star-Lord has to be at a distance now because he's the big boss. And so Gamora's leading this team, and she's taking answers, you know, essentially... Their Charlie, if we're using our Charlie's Angels parlance, is Maximus the Mad, and he's the one dealing them out assignments and whatnot, but it turns out he might have a man on the inside in Cosmic Ghost Rider. So, I mean, I think Gamora already knows that he's working for Maximus, but overall, it's a fun book. I really enjoyed it. Too bad it's ending.
Aww. Seems really fun, even though they're canceling it.
It's fun, yeah.
One team.
It's a shame. I'm a little upset, but you know, well, they're not canceling it. They're ending it after 5 issues.
Right.
They were
Yes.
it was reduced to a miniseries, or
Right.
allegedly has always been a miniseries, but
Yes, there was never plans for it to go any longer. I also read Sonja Reborn this week. This story was called Born Again, which is the second story with a Born Again reference this week. Green Lantern also had a Born Again reference, so I thought that was
yeah, I didn't
funny.
catch that. You're the one who pointed it out.
This is the end of a 6-issue miniseries done by Christopher Priest and Alessandro Miracolo. The color was by Giovanni Caputo, and I really enjoyed this story. I wasn't reading it. I picked it up at like issue 4 because I really like Red Sonja, and couldn't get my hands on I wasn't reading very many comics prior to that. Mm-hmm. And so then I picked up the rest of them and read them pretty much all this week. So my biggest regret with this story is that I wasn't reading it monthly, because I wish I had a little bit more time for it to steep in my percolate in my brain, because it was a really interesting story. One of the things I've noticed with Christopher Priest is that generally there's kind of a lot going on with his plots, and it's not always in chronological order, or there's things that don't really make sense until you read later issues. And so I think I'm going to go back and read it all in one go again, and give it some more time to ruminate. But I did really enjoy it. The ending was satisfying, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because you should still read it. So, but Red Sonja is returning.
It's essentially an isekai, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the main character is not Red Sonja. The main character's name is Margaret, and she's a secretary's secretary for the a duchess. I don't know. Anyway, part of the royal crown. I don't understand how the monarchy works. But it was she was then wrapped up in the fickle needs of the death god and the light god, who struck a bargain with each other, and she was chosen as a champion, and as part of the bet that they had, she was put into the body, her mind was put into the body of Red Sonja, just kind of en media res. She has no idea what's happening.
Quantum leap style.
Slowly, and she slowly has to learn what it means to be Red Sonja and what that means for her life.
Okay, awesome. Does she slowly learn how to be confident like Red Sonja over the course of the book? or is it better than that?
It's better than that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It definitely has a little more. There's that to a certain extent, but confidence isn't really an issue. It's more like she has some dark things in her life, and she learns how to address them, which is great. There's a lot going on there. But yeah, the story is returning in May, so I'll be picking that up again when it's time.
It sounds great. Yeah, no, I'm not super familiar with Red Sonja, but that's something that you've latched onto yourself over the past few months. And
recently,
now you're a big Red Sonja fan now.
Big Red Sonja fan.
Awesome. Well, I read Transformers issue 30. For those of you that don't know, like, this issue in its entirety leaked online like a month ago. So I've been familiar with what has happened here, because Transformers fans are like one of the few fan groups out there that still use like forums that aren't Reddit. It's so weird. Like like old school, like the Transformers like fan, like chat, like the what are they? Crap. The Transformers like fan pages were alit with this book for a number of reasons. Chief among them being Optimus Prime is no longer the leader of the Autobots. Alita 1, or as she is now known, Alita Prime, has challenged Optimus for, leadership, and, she starts beating on him. Optimus is like, no, this isn't how we do things. And he gets her to calm down enough to be like, okay, we'll let the Matrix decide. And surprisingly, the Matrix chooses Alita 1, and she is like, okay, those of you that want to come with me, come with me. Those of you that don't, you are no longer Autobots anymore. So Optimus Prime, now known as just Optimus, which is weird because Optimus Prime has a name.
He has a name when he's not a Prime.
Yeah, he's Orion Pax. I don't know why he's just Optimus now. But Orion, See, I almost said it. But Optimus Prime is left with just a handful of Autobots, even though Megatron and seemingly the bulk of the Decepticons are on Earth. I don't know really. It's not very clear. I would say I really enjoyed Transformers when it was being written by Daniel Warren Johnson. And even though this book, oh, I should mention who it's written by Robert Kirkman and drawn by Dan Mora. And I'd say this arc overall has just had some issues just because I feel like Kirkman is spread a little thin. He's writing 2 monthly books right now in both Void Rivals and Transformers, which I feel like Kirkman's not used to writing monthlies right now. And then on top of it, he only had Dan Mora for 6 issues. This was Mora's last issue. And he felt like he had to get the most out of it. So, Optimus Prime and Megatron are fighting last issue, but then Alita 1 interrupts that fight and lets Megatron get away for some reason. The supreme leader of the Decepticons, she just lets get away. And it's easy to understand.
Very hardened war chief of her.
Yeah, very well thought out. And it's clearly the fact that, well, you have Dan Mora, you're not going to have him not draw Optimus Prime and Megatron fighting each other. Right. But that's not the direction the story is actually going. Like, realistically, Optimus Prime and Megatron shouldn't have interacted for at least another 6 issues, in my opinion, especially when you spent 20 plus issues building up to their first confrontation. Feels like you should spend a little bit more time building up to that second confrontation. And a lot of people online don't like Alita 1 and her characterization, and honestly I can understand why. She is a difficult character to like, but I think I understand what Kirkman and Daniel Warren Johnson are going for, in the sense that Optimus Prime and Megatron have been gone from Cybertron for millions of years, and she's been the one left to hold the fort down. And I think it's easy for us to think, well, she's just being ridiculous for the sake of being ridiculous, but she's been at war longer than anything else, and that's all she knows at this point. So it's easy for me to understand why she's behaving this way. However, I don't understand why she is worthy of the Matrix at this point, especially seeing how Daniel Warren Johnson's stuff was all about the Matrix, and the fact that, our human character Spike, his father, Sparky, sacrificed himself to restore the Matrix, and seemingly his memories and his spirit is somehow it was influencing Optimus to a degree, and was part of why he was able to defeat Megatron in the last arc. And it feels like we're backpedaling that a little bit. So, best case scenario, I hope that Alita 1 is able to go on an interesting arc where she is able to learn, she's able to gain some of Optimus Prime's perspective and understand where he's coming from, and learn that she might need to step down, or, is able to learn something meaningful in some way. That I think that'd be an interesting direction for her character. If I'm being honest, what I suspect is going to happen, it is clear that Kirkman is a big fan of the 1986 Transformers movie and the 3rd season of the Transformers, where Optimus Prime is not featured, and instead Hot Rod becomes Rodimus Prime.
Yay, Rodimus!
And I think, in all honesty, Alita's just getting the Matrix because, as we know in Void Rivals, Hot Rod is heading towards Cybertron right now. I think we're going to kill Alita 1 just so we can get an excuse to get Rodimus Prime and Optimus Prime at the same time.
There we go. Maybe it's a secret plot against Alita 1. Maybe Kirkman just really hates her.
I think that's a waste of her character, because I do think there's something interesting there, in the sense that, I can sympathize with her, and I can understand why she views Optimus as being weak, because, he wants to protect this other world. He cares seemingly more about Earth than he does about Cybertron, where she has spent millions of years, losing friends and family to this war on Cybertron, and she just wants to end it. I can understand and sympathize with where she's coming from. I just don't think it's executed in the best way, and I think it's going to have to be a wait and see. It's one of those things where it's difficult with monthly comics. It's easy to be upset about something like this. However, I think I trust the direction of this universe enough to be confident that Optimus Prime will return. He will become Optimus Prime again, because you can't really sell Transformers without him. And that 86 movie proved that,
There you go.
So that's
as
Transformers.
Much as we like Rodimus Prime.
I do like Rodimus Prime. I will say I'm a Rodimus Prime fan. But that was Transformers 30. Let's talk about the big book this week. If you guys have waited so far, thank you. So let's talk about Absolute Batman 18, the final issue in the Poison Ivy arc that we've been dealing with so far. So this is written by Scott Snyder, obviously, and drawn by Eric Canetti. Brianna, what did you think of this book?
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I liked the art on these Ivy issues a lot. I feel like it was a good choice. Obviously, Nick Dragotta has been doing has been doing a really good job, and I really like his stuff. But for this Ivy arc in particular, I think this artist was a really great choice. And this book, in my notes, I just have sad frowny face.
Sad frowny face.
In my notes.
Yeah, I so as far as the art is concerned, hold on, let me make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Canetta. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I think he's actually by far the best fill-in artist that we've had on this series so far. I think he captures outside of Daniel Warren Johnson, obviously, in that annual. That annual made me cry, but I really like Kennedy's art. He's really able to capture Absolute Batman in a way that is similar to Dragotta, but still his own distinct style, but is still distinctly Absolute Batman. Yeah, the story of this is interesting. So I feel like we'll do a little bit of more summary for this, just because this is the second part of a two-parter that we didn't cover because the show is new. But Ivy in this universe isn't just plant life. She's about all facets of it's not the animal kingdom. It's it's like
just like the natural world. She's got like fungal and bacterial and plant, obviously, and animals.
Yeah. And, she is like, well, you can merge with me, Bruce, and you can become more, because that's the whole point of this art. Because like Bruce is like, I need to become more, and he's trying to figure out how he does that. And it's framed by his mother going on a very similar journey, where we reveal in this issue, or I guess this was the end of the last issue, that Martha is part of the Court of Owls, which instead of being a oligarchical Illuminati group like in the main DC universe, they're seemingly an anarchist like resistance group, I would assume, in this universe. I was actually really impressed with the 180 that Snyder did on the Court of Owls in this universe. They seem really fun and interesting, and potentially like they're good guys, maybe a little bit on the extreme side, but they have more pure intentions than most groups in this universe.
Sure.
And then so she's trying to reconnect with them. We reveal that she was a Talon in this universe, so one of their like elite, I guess in the main universe they are assassins. I don't know what a Talon is in this universe quite yet.
Probably also an assassin. No,
yeah, probably. Yeah, it's, in all honesty, like some sort of elite warrior of some sort. However, Bruce is trying to decide, how do I become more, and he's also struggling he's struggling with how big Batman has become in Gotham, the symbol that he's become. He's struggling. No pun
intended.
Yeah, the big ass bat symbol. It's grown on me with time. I thought it was horrible at first.
That was my favorite part of like the KO issue.
where KO 5
Batman is like,
or KO 4.
I've fought a lot of Batmans recently, but that is the ugliest bat symbol I've ever seen. And then he says it grows on him.
It grows on you. Yeah, it's one of those things where I want it on a t-shirt now. But Bruce has, before he interacts with Ivy, we cut to a previous scene where he had an interaction with Jim. Of course, Jim Gordon and Martha are in a little bit of a romance right now, and Bruce spotted them making out, and I think Jim's reaction to that is like
couch.
Yeah, like making out on the couch. And I think, isn't Jim's reaction to that like, shit? Or like,
he's literally just standing in the door. It's so funny.
Well, either way, he tracks down Bruce and he's like, hey, he has a very adult and mature conversation with him. I really appreciate it. He's like, hey, I have feelings with your mother. You're not going to change that in any way. You're an adult. We're an adult. Like, we're allowed to have feelings for each other, and that's okay. And it's just one piece of dialogue. And Jim, good on Snyder for writing it. Good on Jim for saying it. It was just really cool. But He offers Bruce some advice. And he's like, when I was mayor, people said I was too affable and I cared too much about the people. I cared too much about kissing babies and, taking care of the little people of Gotham, and I wasn't cutthroat enough to be a politician. And when I was stressed about it, I asked Barbara, my daughter, what to do. And she said, Dad, the trees that grow the tallest are the ones that care about the roots. And that tees you up into thinking that Bruce is going to okay, he's not going to give up on his friends. He's going to continue to try to connect with them. He's not going to give up on his relationship with his mother or anything like that. But instead, Bruce does the opposite. So he has, he's able to talk Ivy down, and he essentially is able to convince her that he's like, if you don't stop your attack on Gotham, I'm going to blow up the only thing that's left of you that's human, which is your human heart, which is like the last thing that your mother held was, your human heart. That's the only thing that's left of you. That's
it sounds really dark and creepy out of context, but it was tender in the moment.
Yeah, no, it's the only part of her mother, her past mother that's left. Yeah, is like, it's physically the only thing that's part of her original body is her heart. And
like
Bruce,
her humanity in a lot of ways, where it's like the rest of her has branched out into everything else, and that's really the only human part of her. Yeah.
Yes, that is a much better explanation than what I was doing. But Bruce is like, hey, I'm gonna blow it up unless you call off your attack, and she's like, fine. And then Bruce blows it up anyways.
He blows it up anyway, and Babs is like, what are you doing, man? Why did you do that?
And Bruce is like, he goes full original universe Batman, where he cuts himself off from everybody. He stops, he stops trying to connect with his friends. They're all clearly upset about it, because even though they're telling him to go away, they are touched by his efforts. And then
that page where it just shows like them, like
when you see Eddie,
all of them are looking around.
Yes, yeah. Eddie in particular was a gut punch.
Or
they're looking through the people.
Yep, Croc comes out of the sewer, and he's
back
like,
in his
Bruce,
human form.
Are you there?
Yeah, and oh man, it was rough.
Devastating.
And both the beginning and the end of the story is framed with Martha leaving a voicemail for Bruce, where she says, "Hey son, I love you. Don't change for anybody. The world is going to want you to change, but you shouldn't change." And the entire story, Bruce, can't bring himself to listen to this message from his mom. And then at the end of the story, he deletes it without listening to it. It was just a gut punch. And, of course, we get a sweet image of Batman,
it's
brooding on a tower in classic Batman fashion. But, we also end it with that knowledge that, he is, at least for the time being, ended his connection with his friends and family. He's full Batman right now. He's a meaner, brutaler Batman. And I had mixed feelings on this, because so far, every triumph that Absolute Batman has had has been because of the people and the connections that he's had. He's only able to beat Black Mask because of his friends. He's only able to beat, Bane because of Selina and because of Croc. And then in the Wonder Woman tie-ins, he's only able to either save Diana or help Diana through their relationship with each other and their friendship. So I just think it's interesting that this is the direction that Snyder's going in. Is, he's said this multiple times. He's like, I'm gonna put Bruce through the ringer,
it's just gonna get worse. So hang on.
And I think this stung more than even his friends, being hurt by Bane. So it's still a good book. I'm invested in it, but this book was a gut punch. So
yeah,
I think
it's clear he's going somewhere with it, and I'm sure he'll go with it well. But I don't want it to be too brutal the whole time. Like, I don't want it to just be totally depressing to read all the time. But
yeah,
I'm sure that it will play a meaningful role in this story.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed this book. I'm excited to see where it goes, but this issue was probably the biggest gut punch so far.
Oh yeah.
But
great
I think
emotional impact.
I think is that everything that we read this week? Did we miss anything?
That's it for me.
Awesome. What was your favorite book this week, Briona?
I think I have to give it to Jessica Jones' Alias. Storm was a close runner-up, but I think just everything was just so perfect in Jessica Jones that I have to give it to that, and I will 100% be reading it continually, and I would 100% recommend it, especially since we're so early on in the story. You can still pick up the first issue and hop in wherever you'd like to.
Yeah, I think I will have to give it to... I think Imperial Guardians is up there. It's
bummer.
Between yeah, it's a bummer because it's a book that's ending. But I think honestly, the more I sit on it, I think the book I'm gonna have to give it to is either Absolute Batman or Archie X Army of Darkness, because it was so ridiculous. It was so fun. I'm a fan of both properties. I loved it. So my real pick, Absolute Batman 18. I think my real, like, the pick in my heart, the one that I keep secret to myself, is Archie X Army of Darkness. It was so much fun, and it was
Feels
just
a little crazy to say that out loud, but
yeah, it was great. I loved it. But thank you guys for listening so far. If you got it this far, if you disagree with our takes, let us know in the comments below. If there's another book that you want us to be reviewing, like I see a lot of talk about Hulk. I don't know what the Hulk book is going on right now, but if enough people tell us to read it, we'll check it out. But thank you guys for watching. This has been Zero Issue Comics. I'm Caden.
And I'm Briona. See ya.